Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So it's about 1:20 at night, a.m. Had a long day, doing all kinds of different stuff. And I want to share an episode that it's going to sound like it might sound convoluted. But what I'm about to tell you is something I have been consciously thinking of for, 15, 20 years. I'm not sure I've been able to complete a 48-hour period without studying this in my head. And I guess I'll call the episode maybe like The Simulator or something like that. And it stems from being raised on the movie, probably two movies, and then hearing about a television show. Okay. Gosh, it's probably a whole stretch of stuff. I saw Brainstorm with Christopher Walken, Natalie Wood, Nurse Ratched. I forget her real name. And it's about a machine that you could put on your head that record your entire 5 sense matrix. And if the person, as soon as someone gets it done, records it, and they can give it to you, and if you were a boy, you could feel what it's like to be a girl. Vice versa. If someone had sex, but in their life, they were past their age of having sex. It could revitalize them by giving them a new perspective. It was everything. It's one of the most brilliant science fiction movies ever made. It's Natalie Wood's last movie. Absolutely, if you are a science fiction person, meaning more fact-based movies like a Blade Runner or something, this movie is 100% for you. Get a copy or watch it somewhere streaming, right? Brainstorm. I think it was meant to be shot in 3D. So the credits are going to start kind of going at you, but I don't think they paid to have it done. Because back in the day, they either had to film it in 3D or it wasn't going to be in 3D. There was no easy way to post-process it into 3D. It'd be fun to take the negative and do it. The second movie is Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. 88, 89, somewhere in there. Probably can't rightfully ignore The Matrix, although that would be just a little bit of like a hint of salt. And my father told me he saw this show on TV, and some of you will have seen it. I never saw it. I saw like frames of it. I might get the name wrong. I'm not going to look it up. Keep this all freestyle. But I believe the show was called Mission to Mars. But when you watch the show, it was like a Starsky and Hutch show, but it was a modern Starsky and Hutch show somewhere in the 21st century, It was just kind of weird. But my dad told me that at the end of the show, the big twist was that these dudes who were Starsky and Hutch are actually playing a video game or some type of game. And because they're on a mission to Mars, they're in a spacecraft for a really long time, and this is the way they preoccupy themselves, is to get into the simulator. Now, any of you who are Star Trek buffs will also dial in the holodeck. Now, how many of you are sort of blown away by how The Simpsons seems to predict way too much stuff? Both really evil things and really funny things all at the same time. My friend told his partner right before he died, when his partner asked him, do you think you'll try to, contact me from the other side? And he said, when you see the unicorn, that's me. And within a couple days, his partner went downstairs and watched The Simpsons. Sure enough, there's a unicorn in the episode. It is not a butt of a joke, according to my buddy, and it's just sitting there. It's not a part of the show, The Simpsons. Think about it. He goes, oh my God, there he is. So, we've in the last 3.5 years or so, we've been told by a particular movement online that we are indeed watching a movie. All right. How many of you look at your life and you're like, man, it started off really good, but as I got older and I learned about theories of the world, those theories of the world seem to kind of overtake my reality. Why? How? I mean, 1 or 2 and 50, 60, 70, 100 years. Yeah, sure. But Every decade, there's 2 or 3. You're about to succeed. You're about to make all this amazing money. You're about to get this venture. And bam, you get cut down. Now, if someone were watching your life in a movie, well, that's exactly what the writer's goal is to create what Robert McKee calls a gap. The character wants to cross the street with the chicken, man. Chicken goes across, no problem, because he's not the main character. As the main character tries to cross the street, oh my God, there's an earthquake. The street rips open. Now there's a chasm between this side and the other side. Now the character has to find a way to get across the street, which was before an absolute cinch, but it would have been a bore for the viewers had you crossed the street real easily. For you, it would have been great. You would have gotten to your goal. Do we have proof that we're living in a movie way beyond some insinuation that politicians are just actors and we're having smoke blowing up our holes all day long by mass media? Forget all those fools. What if we are truly either, it's one of two things, at least as a lead category to our kingdom, phylum, order, class thing, right? We're either souls punching into this world, which is a little odd because a soul is always sort of theoretically without a mass body until it connects with one. Or are we already some physical being and we're using a machine either as entertainment, pacification, and a long trip to Mars, or something else? Something very interesting I just realized. So, I know other humans on this planet, other than just listeners, but I love you guys the most. But there is an interesting question I get strictly from females. Because I meet lots of artists and all kinds of folks, right? I try to build up a good friendship circle of people that are doing the same thing I'm doing, but doing it way better. So I get inspired every day when I look at their posts. But the women will always ask me, why do you wear sunglasses on your show? Now, some of the dudes do as well. But the women do it 10-1 over men. Dudes are like, yeah, I get what he's doing. Yeah, he's got this thing. And maybe some of you recognize that I'm doing it for, I did it as a daytime thing. Now I do it as a nighttime thing because it's my kiss makeup. It's how you know me. But why do girls ask for that sort of, I need to see your face? We're not having a relationship necessarily. They just want to say, I'm going to only trust you on a personal level if I can see your eyes. Because the eyes are the window to the soul. Creepy, narrow eyes, or creepy eyes because someone's personality is bleeding through their eye sockets. It's important to a woman. It's part of that species evaluation software where she's kind of looking at you, And it could go the opposite. I don't know. I don't get really bent out of shape if I see a girl wearing sunglasses the entire time. What's really interesting is this was just a serendipitous thing. It does block facial recognition software to a degree, but it's just a way you know me. I've worn sunglasses habitually since I started buying them in the mid-'80s as a kid because my uncle's an optometrist. I could get really expensive glasses for nothing. I'm a connoisseur of sunglasses. Maybe one day I'll do an episode with my collection of glasses that'll blow your mind. I think I've only lost 2 pairs my entire lifetime. 1 in a lake, and 2 dragging in shopping carts at Walmart. For some reason, I didn't have them on. I had them on my clothing or something, and or in a pocket or something, and they were really expensive, and it's snowing outside, and I'm pulling in, dozens of shopping carts, which, by the way, if any of you haven't pulled in shopping carts in the snow, none of the wheels turn. It's really fun. But back to the simulation. I've given you guys this little trick. You OG listeners, you know this. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't done this in real life with someone, it's an instantaneous thing that people go, oh my God, what are you, a wizard? But I realized that staring into someone's eyes is a super important little thing. And so I came up with this little example of how important that is, especially in real life, as opposed to some stupid Zoom call. Zoom and Skype and all these things, it's pure death to the human consciousness of man. You need physical connection. But if you hold up your index finger and you block the eyes with it, it's in the video, I'm doing it with myself. But if I sit with you across the room and I use my finger just to block our eyeballs connecting, so you no longer see my eyeballs, the amount of human connection that you lose is, in my opinion, about 97 to 99%. You feel it immediately. You feel like you're staring at a prop all of a sudden, a mannequin. Yeah, when you catch someone asleep, it's a very interesting process. They're asleep, their eyes are closed. Now, especially works with very peaceful sleepers. They don't wake up violently. And I dated a girl once that, man, she would wake up violently. And it was like, I don't know what happened to her when she was a kid. I don't know. I know her parents, nothing there. But someone who wakes up really nice and soft, and their eyes just go, boom, oh, hey, honey, you know. There's this magic when you wake someone up and their eyes come out of dreamland and they look at you and they're happy to see you. Your little kids, man, it's priceless. Hey, sweetie, wake up, you know, and you're her guardian, you're her world, and you're waking her up in a beautiful way, or him or whatever. You know, my buddy brought his 2 sons to the smoke lounge tonight. It was the cutest freaking moment ever. Just 2 little boys, 2 and 5, or 2 and 4. But just incredible. I have been plagued with this thought. The reason why the eyes are so powerful in this world, because you hear it and you know it's true. You do the block test and you're like, yeah, it's true. Why is that? I've mentioned this a couple times and many, many years ago. What if the game starts off like this? The only thing that we allow as a recognizing mechanism from the other side in this simulation are the eyes of who we are. So if you see my eyes, you're seeing the real me. If I see your eyes, I'm seeing the real you. Although in photograph, it is merely, it's almost just like an indicator of who I am, but you're not really experiencing me. It doesn't matter if I film myself in 8K at 40 frames a second. It'll feel better than maybe 1080p, but it ain't as good as just sitting across the room from me. Or we're having a conversation at a dinner table or something. Something very intense about that. But I mentioned The Simpsons for a very specific reason. Now, we know that Hollywood is a machine that used to just tell great stories and now has been utterly co-opted to try and engineer humanity. It is the most despicable goal because you shouldn't be trying to mess with people's minds like that. Now, moral upticks and that kind of stuff, where you're telling the age-old story of be good, be good, be good. Common law, do no harm. That stuff is fine. Basic archetypes of which you have to apply to your life and find the reason to apply to your life. But someone trying to go in and destroy your identity, who you are as a person, to tell you who to hate and who to like, where to be angry and where to be happy. Those are awful, awful things to be doing to other people. Unless, I guess, if you wrap it in a complete fictional thing and you're sort of making fun of it, where you cross the line of normality, you say, oh, that's what we did. That's what this movie's about, is crossing the lines of normal communication. It's a little twisty for your brain, but in the end, the hero goes, you shouldn't be doing that. Leave us all alone. And so you come away from the theater going, man, this was weird, man. That guy was messing with everyone's life. Shouldn't do that. And so you double down on the fact that you're a sovereign being with your own rights, right? We're not going to get into some tyranny conversation. But look how many movies have these things where I'm getting sort of this stream of consciousness, which is probably coming out of science fiction books or anyone who just sits around for a long time thinking. You know, I'm at an age now where maybe writers back in the 80s of my same age, or maybe late 70s, they were having the same thoughts because they were at the same level of development. They read the same kind of books that I read, or maybe they even wrote them. And so it was a natural progress. I see Brainstorm. I see Total Recall. I see The Matrix. My dad watches the Mars thing. You and I have hundreds and hundreds of conversations about this. But now the question starts to arise, do I know you? Do I know you from our real world? Which is why you're really watching me. If you're a fake person, as you mentioned in the Instant Earth Theory episode, well, then you're not real and you're not listening. But if you really are there, you're not an NPC. You're a real being. Now, whether or not we're a human on the other side, it seems like that would make sense. But there's another thing that's always maybe question things, which is, why do babies cry? Now, usually it's hunger, fatigue, or boredom. As a parent, that's what I discovered. Once I catered to those three conditions, I could keep my kid from crying. Now, my kid wasn't a big crier. I mean, there was a point, though, when she was little, there's no logic to the crying. It just happens. I used to play her Rob Zombie or White Zombie or whatever it was, and she just started sleeping. Just the more methodical bonus tracks on the albums. But the reason why I mentioned the crying thing is it sort of stems from a bunch of possibilities. One of the possibilities is you've been born into the game. Now, you were something else before you were born into this game. And so maybe you're frustrated with, oh my God, I'm a baby again. This is weird. Maybe it's that you were something completely different. Your life design was completely different, right? Like maybe you weren't human. And so now you're in this two-legged, two-armed thing. And even humans themselves could freak you out. And you got to get used to it. It's like the Twilight Zone where the girl keeps getting the surgery to get fixed. And they keep telling her, don't worry, we've got a whole, section of the world. Just in case this doesn't work, you can go live with them and they're all like you. And she's like, oh my God, don't even say that. And of course, they take the bandages off her face. She's gorgeous, man. And all the other people look freaky. Like DJ High-Tech from Die Antwoord, who used that mask from the Twilight Zone as a way to deal with his agoraphobia. And then this handsome guy comes in to her and says, hey, we've got a whole place where we live. You should chill out. That's good. He's super handsome. She's super beautiful. And you're thinking, oh my God, it's like a paradise wherever they do live. But she set a standard in her mind that she's supposed to be this other ugly thing. If you've ever raised a kid or you had a brother or sister or a neighbor or whatever, and you understand how little you actually interact with the kid in terms of what they see versus what they do, the monkey see, monkey do algorithm. My friend's son was 2 years old tonight. Big kid for his age. And, my kid started feeding a baby doll at 6 months, man. We'd say, where's your baby? And she'd crawl over and find the baby and say, can you feed the baby? And she'd go find the bottle somewhere in this big pile of toys in the middle of the room, and she'd feed the baby. 6 months. Then we'd say, put the baby to sleep. She'd go find a blanket, and she'd put the baby to sleep. She can't even talk. She's crawling. It's weird. She was born in February. She's walking by Thanksgiving. So 9 months. She wasn't only walking, she was dancing to a thing. It's like, okay. The parents, we didn't say, okay, here's how you dance. Here's how you walk. Of course, she's seeing us walk. But there's something about the age of the soul that's going into these vessels. The Matrix, one of the biggest contributions to this conversation that the Matrix movie sort of participates in is not just the idea that Neo's in this full-blown video game and then he pops out and he has all these, things pulled out of his body, but it's the deja vu effect, a glitch in the system. It is true that if the software ever hiccuped on itself, it looped around some information. How many of you have watched a video on YouTube and it got a little out of sync, or you're watching a movie file on your computer and it got a little out of sync and it starts to, just every once in a while, it just repeats a certain area of the video. Like it felt like it got so out of sync that whatever it did displaying the pixels and the information to you, it needs to really go back and give you another chance to see it because it's screwed up. When I watch Taxi with my buddy, if we don't use the VLC player, it does that. VLC keeps it pretty good. Interesting. I have this weird, instinct, vision, that perhaps this is what's going on. That it is several layers up between you and God, me and God. There are simulation layers. And think about this. For everyone who's so pissed off about what shape the world is, I think someone asking me if I'm a flat earther, which just recently happened, is almost like saying, tell me what you think about abortion. It's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what I think. Watch all my episodes. You'll know exactly what I think. I'm an expanding earth person. But again, I'm also an open-minded, intelligent person, and I like hearing everyone's opinion. Every person's opinion, the concave or earth opinion. Because I'm not looking for a fight. I'm not looking to make enemies in this world, to somehow muster up some opinion that I have value in this world. I know guys who post on Facebook just giant, pardon my French, fuck you posts to everyone that they know in this world. It's like that gives them value somehow. And they don't lament about anything that they do believe. They just say, I'm this. And if you don't believe this, then you're stupid. And it's like, okay, well, dude, why do you believe that? Don't worry about what I believe. I just believe this. And it's like, okay. Good luck with that little tiny friend list, I have to unfollow those guys. I'll let them be friends with me, but I unfollow them because I don't want to see their just useless posts. It's like, dude, go read a book, would you? Because if you're going to post 22 times a year that you're this particular thing and everybody else is an idiot, at least share one fucking sentence that is you showing you have a brain and not just a bias assholeness to you, It's just weird. It's just, I don't get humanity sometimes, man. It's only like one out of like 1,000 people do this. But it's so visceral and so acidic. You just got to go. Unfollow, man. We could have had a conversation, but you won't read and you won't study. All you want to do is feel smart with no research, no nothing, right? It's odd. But if we're in some sort of game mechanism as a mere tool to survive perhaps a prolonged journey, a prolonged life, then it doesn't matter where we are. And what if, let's advance up from, so what Brainstorm does is it gives us a platform for us to discuss things. They have figured out how to record and play back or broadcast live, like an Unreal video game, all your senses. And you can interact with it. It's kind of cool, right? But you go up to Total Recall, and it's one of these things where the dude was selling him packages. You want to be a certain thing. You want to be president. Okay, so you might think, well, why don't I have my own simulation where, just like in the various Twilight Zones, there's the Twilight Zone with the Mr. Wickwire, and it was a foreign asteroid where these astronauts land, and it's like Earth, but they're really far away from Earth, and they're looking around, and it's like they find humans fishing and winning beauty pageants and becoming mayor and a bunch of other cool stuff, but everyone's frozen until they bump into Mr. Wickwire. Mr. Wickwire is a robot that looks like an old man. And it's a cemetery. It's a cemetery where you get put into a position that you always wanted to be in your lifetime. You are in the afterlife. Well, I should say this much. Your body is celebrated the way you always wanted. You want to be a rock star? Well, you're on stage, man. You're the 5th member of KISS, you know? Now, that would be you in the simulation, sort of by yourself, with as many artificial friends, and you would get your way the entire time. It'd be like you being, I don't know, one of these like Steven Spielbergs that just is on level 1. The guy just falls uphill. But we're frustrated because we think we're surrounded by a bunch of devious people. And I've been lamenting over and over. I just did it in the episode about, I'm always, since I saw Westworld, it was like, oh my God, that could be us, right? But now what if we're sharing theaters? It's just like a multiplayer online game, like World of Warcraft or something. Sure, there's a bunch of NPCs, but there are thousands and millions of other players in that world with you, except unlike World of Warcraft, where your biggest inconvenience bumping into another person would be you were going to kill that monster because it's part of what you have to do, and they killed it first, and now you got to sit around and wait for a respawn for them to come back. Oh, now we're going to kill it, That's a minor inconvenience. But what if in this world, they get to be president, and they don't know what the hell they're doing, and so they screw the whole place up. But you have to be on the plane when they crash it into the ground because all they wanted to do was be a pilot. And just like those people that post online with no research and no words to contribute to their passion, supposedly, their absent profoundness. These people just fly the plane right in the ground. They run the countries into the ground. They're sort of idiots that are coming in saying, I want to play that role, How many times have you had that situation happen where, as a kid, you all agreed to do something together, and one of the dumbest kids wants the biggest position because all they want is the biggest position. They don't want to have to learn how to do anything. I want to be the captain of the team. But do you even know the rules of this game? No, but I want to be the captain of the team because it's ego, ego, ego. I hate the mirror. Boom, boom, boom. You know that the smarter you get in this world, the more isolated you get. The more you do research, the more isolated you get. Because even if a person has a degree in something, it's very short-lived. They only wanted to learn is the minimum amount that they needed to learn to get the degree. But as soon as they hit graduation, so many people with degrees go, I'm glad that's over. I never want to read another piece of this crap again. I just want to go to work, look up something on a table, prescribe a drug, and go home and do whatever I do. Whereas you and I were like, this doesn't end, ever. We're going to be learning to the day our brains cease to work. And because we don't relax, our brains are like Arnold Schwarzenegger's chest until we die. So this simulation, for me, explains how there's so much, we used to call it predictive programming. But there is predictive programming and then there's prophecy. In my opinion, The Simpsons have been more prophetic and more prophecy, showing you things that are absolutely insane. The Donald Trump and his wife coming down the escalator being president. That's not predictive programming. That's prophecy. The dude with the horns that ran into the Capitol building. Well, he's in the Capitol building in a cartoon. Now, one could say, okay, that guy dressed up like the Simpsons dude. But the Capitol building thing? Kobe dying in a helicopter. 9/11. Bart holding up the $9 magazine or 9-cent magazine with the two towers in it? It's just like, come on. It gets to be fairly insane. Any one of you have broken down the Back to the Future association with 9/11. And it makes you wonder, do we not have enough money on the outside world, if this were true, to buy the good solutions? And so we're still living in a class structure, so even when we have an entertainment goggle on, the rich Idiots. They're the ones running the world into the ground because they're aristocratic Darwin people. Don't want to figure out anything. Remember, Darwin stole everything from de Lamarck. Couldn't understand epigenetics, so he went with something that every caveman understood, which is survival of the fittest. Nothing profound. The guy was a complete hack from start to finish. Predictive programming for me is more like Black Mirror. Black Mirror showed you the social credit system, and here it is. In America, it's cancel culture, but in China, it's straight up. Either do what the Communist Chinese Party says, or we will remove all of your privileges. So they're leveraging this COVID stuff against us to do a big portion of it in the United States. Of course, the idiots all line up. But the other part is just cancel culture. You better kiss the feet of the doctor in A Clockwork Orange. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. They'll come cancel you. The idea about the instant Earth theory and this theory mixed together starts to explain some stuff. I mean, it's sort of silly, but we want to go down every rabbit hole, in my opinion. This is definitely a rabbit hole. The world looks like it's been used over and over and over again for different levels of society. I still can't explain certain things. You know, people with modern equipment building sort of, I don't want to say inferior, but definitely bizarre structures, of which if you could build the equipment to make the structures, you wouldn't build the structures. Unless, again, you're perhaps beckoning back to a time before that. And I'll give you an example. We know the pyramids exist in 2021. If for whatever reason, levitation became something we could do, and the drilling equipment, the circular saw equipment, was very easy to get a hold of and easy to power, and for whatever reason, we don't even have a monetary system anymore. We're just all chill. All those scumbags are dead. Well, what if we're sitting in Kansas and we're like, you know what? We've got stone quarries all over Kansas. We do. So what we're going to do, just as a challenge, is try to rebuild pre-dynastic Egypt in Kansas. Just to see if we can. That's all it is. And we don't quite know exactly how they did it, so we're making mistakes and we're doing stuff. So we got a lot of spare rocks we throw off to the side with circular saw marks and borehole marks and other things. Beautiful contoured stuff. Because for whatever reason, that equipment's now been developed. Then we die because it happens. And the game keeps it in the system like a Minecraft game. Whatever you build's in there, it's there. And then 1,000 years later, 10,000 years later, this program just keeps going and going and going. Believe me, in 100 years, people are going to be playing World of Warcraft 1.0, 2004 release, just for the fun of it. They're just going to do it, some retro thing. Plenty of people play old Atari 2600 games today in 2021, and the platform's over 40 years old. It's just fun. It's nostalgic. So what if all that stuff that is triggering our brain to think, man, how old is this place? It's all just a bunch of pre-uses of this game, this entertainment platform. I had an idea. Was it last night when I got in bed? And I was thinking about the Mandela effect and the fact that, you know, they blame the CERN Hadron Collider for the Mandela effect. One, because some of the CERN employees were definitely playing some games, taking some pictures. I don't know which one came first. But now imagine you've got a quantum computer, not the nonsensical future-seeing Project Looking Glass thing that Simon Parkes talks about, but a real quantum computer. And you have secured 500 qubits, which is 200 more than you need. And now you have a computer that can technically conceive of every ethereal particle in a near infinite universe. It can build a Zani Woob universe in your office. Go see Hitchhiker's Guide for that one. Now imagine if you get a computer that brilliant, And a quantum computer, again, conceives of everything at the same exact time. It doesn't have a linear path that it must go down to figure something out necessarily. It can conceive, technically, with this very small sample of fairy cake, let's just say, it can conceive of the rest of the universe by reverse engineering through an ingestation mechanism, algorithm, the butterfly effect in the opposite polarity. It looks at the price of tea in China and tells you where the butterfly will be in Peru. Now, once you have a sampling that's correct, you can go the other way. But you're still just observing in a quantum computer. But now imagine you've got a certain hadron collider. Was it 17 miles around, or it's between Switzerland and France? It's the biggest machine man's ever made. Absolutely complex. Slinging around protons, apparently. But you also have this giant ring with a couple other side rings. And you use a quantum computer to create impacts or electromagnetic pulses at massive levels to then bump into all of the atomic mass that we can get our hands on, bump into, right, with this machine. And it starts to create a ripple effect to change things. Now, changing time, I don't know. It could technically, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, okay, it's a big-ass machine in the middle of nowhere. I'll just give you some silly examples. But you think about Berenstain becoming Berenstein, which is actually it's the opposite. But imagine, okay, so you have Berensteins everywhere and you want to make them Berenstains. People will remember the other one, but once you start running into a problem where you can't find the Berenstein book because it doesn't exist, you're like, shit, that's a Mandela effect. But now what if your house at your place of existence is white? It's white. Why is it white? It's white because when light hits it and bounces into your eyeball, you get the full spectrum of the rainbow. But now let's just say I'm sitting in this hadron collider, and I got this quantum computer controlling every minute function of this thing. I may be slamming protons together, but that's just to create electromagnetic wave. Could be doing a lot more things I'm just not going to tell you. So you can't find out. But from Switzerland, France, you live in, say, Toledo, Ohio. I got your address in Google Earth. I know where you live. You got a White House. I am going to tell this quantum computer that I want your house to be red tomorrow. Why would it be red all of a sudden? Well, because the paint, when light reflects off of it, it's going to send a frequency of red into your eye. So I need to change the molecular structure of the paint on your house, but nothing else on your house. Not even the trim is going to change. You're still going to have white trim. You're still going to have maybe some off-gray shingles on the top. I just want to hit your paint on your house. Seems impossible, right? But the quantum computer can think about the entire sphere or flat disk or whatever of Earth, and I can bump this thing, sends a wave somehow where it's just saying I'm going to put out almost a mushroom cloud of electromagnetic pulse. But it's designed to ricochet off everything so perfectly that by the time it bounces off the paint on your house, it changes the paint on your house and it turns red. Now, for any of you who remember computers back in the day, and some of you hackers today, you'll be very aware of this. I want you to keep in mind, if you're not a programmer, you're not a technical person, just in the back of your head, what I'm about to describe to you is how, if this is a software-driven solution that we're playing with, giving us the illusion we have this tangible mass, right? Well, every particle, theoretical, that makes up who we are is in some memory somewhere. Probably nothing like anything that we have on planet Earth, you know? It's not a memory stick. It's probably some holographic cube or something else. It's in a qubit. Or it's some other ancillary piece of hardware that the qubits program to store positives and negatives, ones and zeros, right? So imagine you could just hack the system from here. Recreate something that hacks the game from inside the game. And many of you have done this, right? You'll have there's just a hack. There's something you can do where one of the big things we used to do in World of Warcraft was you would find a rip in the ground, and if you stepped in it, because it's 3D, all of a sudden it's a blank polygon, and you start falling. You can fall forever. Lots of video games had this problem when we first started creating 3D games because the polygons would have ripping. It's pretty much solved. I haven't seen it in a really long time. Sometimes you'll load a game up on your computer. WoW has the problem as well, where it takes so long to load the textures and the geometry that for a little while on your computer, everything's transparent and strange. You can start seeing through layers of the ground, and you start seeing stuff you're not supposed to see until it fills in after loading it off the hard drive. I'm going to continue on this path a little bit longer here because I think there's some interesting analogies here. So some of us have had these supernatural experiences. Loved ones who pass who come to tell us that I'm okay now. What if that's nothing more than the loved one coming up to your little cubicle in the outside world and whispering it into your ear? And then your mind imagines something. It's in your mind's eye. It's not where you could see it if you were here with me. But then you're suddenly like, oh my God, I just saw my grandmother. I saw Walt Disney. Maybe that guy was a real player. He was an amazing player. He does all this crazy stuff. Other players got jealous and bumped him off or whatever. Smoked too much, right? Founder of adventure, right? But how many of you have seen, and some of you, we have about 96% men, so I apologize, ladies. There are games out there where people create these videos like Rust is an amazing game. And people do these raids, and you'll have someone flying around filming the raid between two factions. Tons of real people in this fake world. But one guy's in God mode. And he flies around. He'll even talk to the characters. No one can hit him. He can't participate. It's really kind of freaky because the guy could actually tell on, some information. It's almost like looking at everyone's poker cards and saying, that guy's got an ace. You better get something better in your hand. But there's a gag mode that you can play, but you're flying around this world in God mode. Imagine that's just a spirit coming up to you, saying, hey, what's going on? You're like, what the hell was that? A UFO. What the hell was that? It's just like Will Wright's game Spores. Maybe we're living in a complete echo of what we're actually in. Because it's sort of after a while, you gain a certain level of intelligence, and by us creating computers and games inside computers, isn't it interesting that you can argue with every single computer person, but even the television show Computer Chronicles with was it Gary Kildar? They asked him once, what do you think? You think games are going to be real popular on this new machine? And Gary's like, games are the reason why these machines are getting faster in the personal computer realm. It's not businesses asking for them to be faster. The government does its own thing with supercomputers. But in the personal computer realm, without games, nobody wants a video card to be faster. They don't need more RAM. They need more megahertz. We've now tasted it. Those of you who've seen the Unreal 5 game engine demo, my God, I'm going to tell you, my estimation is that in 10 years, the next version, Unreal 6, which I'm just making this up, I'll be surprised if there's a single thing that you can distinguish between reality, but I guarantee you in 20 years, reality will be a headset away from being in this universe I'm talking about. 100 years from now, it'll be 100p. 100%. This reality is going to exist inside a computer in 100 years. Now, the only question, which I think Brainstorm is, it's about a laboratory, a private laboratory funded by the government, creates this tape that records all your emotions and all your senses, everything, a heart attack, a dream, everything. Well, you think the United States government saw that movie and didn't go, make it so? I think for sure, probably Russia and the United States alone said, make it so. So, when we get these creepazoids out of the government, and they exist, man. They got on Tom McVeigh, or Tim McVeigh, right? Sorry. Tom McVeigh is the predictive programming character. And they'll tell you, I can make you think anything I want you to think. You're thinking, MK Ultra, some crazy drugs and M16s in your gut and all this other weird stuff. Well, what if they give you a shock treatment, which is going to pretty much make you devoid of a lot of your current electrical state in your brain? You're going to go back to zero, and then when you wake up, without you knowing it, you're living in a machine that is doing the brainstorm effect, but it's not a playback tape. It's an Unreal Engine. And you just wake up and accept what the engine tells you you're doing. So you feel like you're moving your hands and your legs and having a conversation, but you're really just in a stasis pod somewhere, in a paralysis of some sort, maybe a chemical paralysis that keep your body incapable of moving. So you start accepting everything. We have this letter on the internet that keeps talking about all these miraculous things occurring, which I think we can flush about 80% of that down the drain. But still, if you even kept 20% of it, the idea is that dude was a game, no matter if he's real or not. It was a LARP, a live-action role-playing exercise. Whether it turns into a real thing because it programs you to take on the enemy, then it would be real. Like if you said, hey, do you realize you're a slave, but you think you're free? What? I feel really free. Yeah, I know you think you feel free, but you're really not. Let me show you. Bing, 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 bing. And you're like, oh my God. I'm in this crazy simulation and I don't really have free choice. Maybe it's a prison. But if you were a bastard in the outside world, and they're like, okay, instead of putting you in jail where you're going to go fight everybody and kill everybody, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in as a real character in this game. A bunch of people are fake, but you're a real one. And you can leave this simulation once you demonstrate that your brain, your soul, the real you, can coexist with other people and get along. We could live for something, stand for something instead of standing for nothing. And the more that you live this life just to get your rocks off and to serve number one, as long as you get yours, you gotta be careful with that. What if that's just a sentence to come back? Why is it that some people are so empathetic and others just don't give a fuck about anybody else in the world? And these aren't necessarily world leaders. These are people you know. Some people are really broken in their minds, but they're sweet people. But they're formidable. They're big bruiser people. You got to be careful. You can't make them angry. You make them angry, they'll kill you. They don't necessarily want to, but they're fragile. Well, they're getting their rehabilitation potentially in this simulation, where they do actually, technically, do no harm. We struggle as human beings with the loss of life, especially young life. It seems unconscionably ungodly to allow a child who has done no harm to anyone to leave early. Would God would do that? Well, if this is a game, one of two things could be true. Probably several things could be true. Your child is alive and well and perfectly fine, which is probably where I would lean. But their situation is, they could be in their, let's just say that we're still living some sort of, well, I didn't want to say that we have a lifespan on the other side that's really short, but let's just say for the sake of argument, we still live 100 years on the other side before something miraculous happens. And you're sentenced to this system to get your shit together because you were sort of a bastard on the outside. You just have a little flaw, but that flaw just gets out of hand, you know? So you see your daughter or your son is actually in their 20s and 30s, 40s, whatever. They're living a good life. And, you know, it could be like these Black Mirror episodes where for you it seems like you're living a full extra life inside this machine. But they come down as your kid. And part of the test is, do you value life? And if you lose it, I mean, not yours, but someone you love, how do you react? Can you be a good person after this horrific event occurs? Because that's what the system needs to know about you. Do you pass a test? It's almost like a psychological Captain Kirk test. So your kid is in the simulation with you, born as your child. That is really your child. They're a real being. They love you to death, and nothing's ever going to change that. And they're not really dead. But in this world, they didn't make it. But it was an orchestrated event to see how you would deal with it. Or maybe a bunch of people deal with it. Maybe you're just a victim of having to deal with it because someone else in your circle has to figure it out. Second thing could be, you do have a kid, but that one in this world was a placeholder. It mirrored very accurately the child that you know, but the system won't allow, quite literally, anyone to die, for real. Your kid won't die. It's not allowed. But if you perceive them to die, it feels just the same. And by engaging all of your senses, which may be way more than this lame 5 senses they tell us about, right? The system's watching you. Yeah, let me freak you out a little bit more. In a good way, I guess. We know that we're trying to write, in this world, artificial intelligence to behave like humans. And that's the toughest, tallest order, because you have to give a machine equal senses of a man to start even behaving like man. But one thing that would be a lot easier to do, if it's a big system looking down on you, would not be to emulate you, or emulate an NPC of some sort, but to simply watch you in this world and record what you have done to then assess you on particular intervals. That person was very nice to this other person. It didn't have to be. They gave $1 or $2 to a homeless person. Didn't have to, but they did. They held the door for someone. They sat up at night worried about a friend. They went and checked on their child just to make sure they're okay. They were extra friendly to a spouse. They never stepped on anyone's head to get ahead. The system can just watch you. It's not exactly that intelligent. The only thing that's required to make that happen is that the computer has to be able to observe you and to listen to what you say. Remember what we talked about, and many times, about laws of attraction. If you simply think it in your head, it's not usually enough. You must analog your thoughts outside of your body. You must put them in written form. And then stuff happens way, way faster. The inspirational board thing. You put on the wall everything physically that you want in this world. I got a friend of mine, she does this. Okay. That allows this AI to see what you're doing so that it can provide you easily with what you're desiring. But if you sit there and just think about it, what's really going on is it's your real mind in the other world that's punching through and having this experience here. But the AI in this video game has no idea what the hell you're thinking. Just like World of Warcraft can't possibly know what I'm thinking about sitting in my office playing the game, which today is extremely awful, and I just canceled my subscription. What do we do in this world with babies so that they become equipped to function in this world? Well, we know that bad parenting ruins the entire world. The biggest problems we've ever raised in this world always stem from really bad parents, almost on every occasion. And it's not always a parent beating a child and turning them into a monster. A lot of parents are just neglectful, but they love their kids dearly. They give them too much stuff. And so they become incapable of taking care of themselves. And as their parents die off, they can't deal with the universe. And so they tend to steal and become corrupt human beings. But now remember, I mean, this is going to get real esoteric for you guys, but this is the real me and how I think, man. I've told you guys several times that I see overlay universes on this universe all the time. Now, I haven't had the physical overlay in probably about a year. Last one I remember, I was driving on the 405 South. It was an overcast day, and there's an area between here and Irvine. There's a lot of lush foliage on the side of the highway. And for whatever reason, when it's overcast and I'm in those junctions, I get the burst of the overlay. It is a completely different universe, but it's still human beings, and we are just, all of us driving down the highway, we're all in it to win it. I mean, there's no evil in this world. It's just this amazing feeling, but there's no angels flying in the air or anything. It's still a real world. But I get that. But since I've been telling you that I've been getting these things, it's evolved. The other thing I get is bursts, especially when I'm about to go to bed. But it happens throughout the day as well. I get bursts of these other universes. And there's like I've always told you guys, about 6 or so. I don't know if they're all the same. Maybe there's 6,000 or 6 million or whatever. But I feel like there's just there's a few universes I remember. I remember living there. I remember having a family there. I remember being a kid there. It's a bizarre sort of memory of an entire life. But you have to understand that everything I'm seeing, as far as I know, is in the future. And it's never existed on Earth, is sort of how I feel about it. And so I sit and concentrate on these things. I try to think it through. And I thought, well, what's interesting about it, because there's a unifying factor about these worlds. And the unifying factor is that the people in this place, these places, one, I feel like they're all of the same species. They are all good people. There are no jerks in these other worlds that I see. And it's not dreamy either. It is very, very real. I mean, very real. And when I have the vision, second one is seeing it. Second two is feeling it, feeling the vibe of it. And second three is understanding that this is real. It's been there for a really long time. These people are there no matter if I'm there or not. And then I've actually been there and enjoyed it. One feels like Hawaii, kind of, but not beachy, but more like the inner Oahu kind of older classicer. Always a new word, huh? Classic, almost 70s sort of architecture, very simple and fun. And others are, super futuristic, cool places. But what it started to occur to me was, I know that if I were to be actually moved into any one of these other universes, or whatever you want to call them, parallel universes, that I would have to have a quarantined decompression out of everything that is this world. Because if I brought the acidic nature of this fucked up place that we're in now into that world, I would be like a virus, unless they are absolutely capable of ignoring me 100%. And it's not that I am naturally a good person. So I feel like that's not the real challenge of being a good person on the other side. But it would probably be swearing and knowing anything about this world's evil. It would have to be something that I would have to either have conditioned out of my system, or something that would have to be utterly chemically erased out of my brain or mechanically erased. I don't know how the soul works or whatever this thing is. But to coexist with them, I got to be them. So now I think about that opinion of that really esoteric, strange thing, and I bring it into this world, and I think, what if, in addition to simply incubating us up from birth, that if man's psyche develops way faster than man's genetic instinct, and we did create this really beautiful kind of Star Trek Gene Roddenberry world, that none of us would be qualified to be there quickly. We would have to organically get there, train ourselves to be worthy of being with the people that are more sophisticated than us all the way to their core. And instead of making it a class, for those of you who self-educate, you damn well know that when you teach yourself how to do something with almost no mentorship whatsoever, when you learn how to do it, you know it better than the folks that went to college. Which is where you get into these disputes with people that went to college. Because college gives you a false sense of security about the information that you have. Neil deGrasse Tyson, for instance, he believes wholeheartedly everything that he was ever taught. He was never taught to think for himself. As far as I know, he has no inventions or patents to his name. All right, so I'll take Tesla any day over Neil deGrasse Tyson. Tesla did a little bit of school, but most of it was his own work. Standing on the shoulders of giants before him, but having at least the temerity to study the giants before him. Kenneth Burke, the philosopher, same thing. I think every great philosopher used college as merely a stepping stone to then develop their own philosophy of the human condition. That's how they become great. So if we're in this world, potentially, and we are self-educating about what is good and what is bad by being observant and saying, man, I did that and it really screwed me over, or I felt really bad about it. I had a massive level of rejection, or I should say regret, massive level of regret, and I never want that feeling again. And so they keep resetting the program. And again, in the outside world, what if it's 10 seconds? 1 second per decade. And you've lived 100 years in 10 seconds. Well, it's not robbing you of your outside life. If it's 10 seconds for, I'm making this up, of course, but 10 seconds for 100 years. So you spend 2 weeks in this conditioning camp to get yourself ready to live in one of those more privileged, more well-balanced, super high vibration worlds with people with great IQs and people that only have ever hurt anyone in this simulation when they were being incubated up to be worthy to join man, who again has mental intellect way more sophisticated than their genetic programming. There's some of us that take drugs like acid. Acid, my first trip, which I think was about 3 tabs. I don't know. I mean, we got it from the Grateful Dead stash, but I had a really good trip because I had never had the experience. I really relaxed my mind, but it was mostly artistic. It was amazing. A couple little hallucinations, not much. On my second trip, I took, 6 hits. No hallucinations whatsoever. But man, my mind was just racing with connections and cool stuff, and I found myself drawing. Oh, wait, I got to find that footage somewhere. Third trip, we both don't know how much we took. And I manhandled it again, and it was even less. It was wonderful, but it was less. The more you take this stuff, the more your brain gets used to it and crushes it. And we're talking about, my first and second trip was probably 6 months apart from each other. And then the next trip was 2 or 3 years later. So any chemical immunity I might have built up would have been washed away down to zero again. But this happens to all of us sometimes. But if you think about, let's do a drug analysis inside of this simulation. You might be saying, well, dude, if you think you're in a computer simulation, then what the hell is a drug? It's a program. That's what it is. It's a program. What is iTunes? What's iTunes to your grandmother and what's iTunes to you? Maybe iTunes to your grandmother means Frank Sinatra, Glenn Miller. But to you, it's Mode Selecta. It's Tupac. It's whatever you like to listen to. You're having a blowout experience. You are blowing the woofers in your computer. Your grandmother is enjoying it in her home stereo system, simulcast to some Apple home unit or something, and it's just soft and wonderful. It's classical music that she likes to paint to. But it's still just iTunes. It's just the trumpet. You're just blowing different notes through it. So a drug inside your program is a little subroutine that latches on to your interpretive circuits, your interpretive programming modules that say, photons came in your eyes, this is what you do with those photons. Sound came in your ears, this is what you're doing. Again, my buddy Richard, he was playing some beautiful music on my first trip where I was really just laying on the sofa, my eyes were closed, and I was having this incredible hallucination of like Latino graffiti in my brain. It was the coolest thing, watching these dudes paint these cars, and it was so cool. And then the music slipped into like some gangster stuff, which I didn't know Richard even had such a thing. And boy, whatever I remember I was looking at this weird character in my brain. Kind of looked like the weird lady that sang for Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, the one with the lips out on the thing. That's what it looked like. It was kind of a little different. I drew it, and it turned into like an ostrich skin creature, and it went dark and black, and it just looked like it was dying, like it was turning into rotten food. And then I could hear him, he turns it off and he goes, whoops. He puts back on some really cool stuff. But it still took my mind a little while to shake out the program. The reason why I like these bizarre rabbit holes about where the hell we are is that at least one of you listening to me will have listened intently. Every word I said, you totally understood. And you know at the end of this story, this isn't really that weird. It really doesn't conflict with anything that you're actually experiencing. And the older that you get and the more observant that you get, aka enlightened, you realize less and less makes sense sometimes. It's fun. I mean, like seeing The Simpsons predict everything. You're like, what? It's like some that's fun though, isn't it? Like, I don't know how this is happening, but it's happening. And this dude online was telling us all we're watching a movie. And imagine you have administrators that are in here going, let's just take our current situation in 2021. We have evil incarnate pretending to be our leaders. They all need to be cooked. They all need to be gallowed, guillotined. They do. They all need to be just taken away. If we could just push a button and erase them, get them out of the program, we do that. So don't worry about any pain or suffering. Just get them out of here, right? Turn off their headset. And imagine, and this has happened in video games, you just get bad factions inside games and they start to do bad things to other players. In the old shooter games, you would have not only people who hack their clients to be able to do stuff to the server, like fire more formidable weapons that they shouldn't have access to, or weapons that don't even exist in the game, but sometimes they can hack the server to think that one shot is one kill. Or they start and do this like perch thing where they snipe everybody who comes into the game. It's not illegal, but they've been playing the game for a long time, so they have major weaponry. Now, Rust makes a game out of this, and you go in knowing that that's what's going to happen, which is nice. But a lot of the games in the 90s, the creators of the games had to go in and say, you can't do this. You're ruining it for everyone else. So you've only paid $40 for the game, but you're ruining it for people that total up $400,000 worth of game purchasing. But the reputation is that you, the asshole, are sitting there shooting everybody, and you make it unfun. World of Warcraft's expansion in 2020 is doing the exact same thing. They made a bunch of crazy top-tier 1% things that you can get out of the game, but there's limited quantities, like just a couple of these things. They did this way back in the day, and people were pissed. They're like, that one mount goes to one guy per server? Screw this game. I paid the same amount of money just because this kid gets there first. I mean, there's always going to be someone who gets it first, and if there's only one, well, he gets a bonus because he got there first randomly. Maybe he had to work hard to get there, but maybe you're busy in life, right? And the nerd at college is like, or some 14-year-old kid sitting at home, not going to school because the ignorant liberal governors won't allow the schools to open up, making sure everyone's retarded. They're pissed. And they're canceling their accounts like crazy right now. And Blizzard's like, we're SJWs. You can't tell us we have anything wrong. We're like, good. Well, your company won't exist in a couple of years. You're going to be draining your bank. Doesn't the world feel a little juvenile, if not massively juvenile? Especially today in 2021. I mean, children have stolen the car. They've stolen the family car. And now they're going down the highway the wrong way. And we just keep trying to say, as they pass us, we're like, wrong way. They're like, we know, fuck it, man, ba, 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 ba. And they're just slaying people because they got some big truck that doesn't get damaged by hitting other people. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I sure hope all of you and me that we graduate to a much, much more intelligent world. I mean, even just looking back, where would you insert yourself besides somewhere in the 20th century? And it's only a few countries to live in a much more balanced, wonderful, brilliant world where people just want to be productive and not screw everybody over. And that when someone starts to screw people over, we kill them. It's just that simple. You're defective. Sorry. Ping, you're out of the game. Your genetics are bad. I'm sorry, man. Maybe your sister's better, but you're a piece of shit. See you later, man, right? There's so much to be accomplished creatively, intellectually, self-awareness-wise, in a much smarter world. Cancel culture is a bunch of babies running around the world trying to keep you as stupid as they are. They don't want you to have anything that they don't have. It's like the little kid at daycare. He wants to own all the toys in daycare. And even if he's not playing with the toy because he says that toy sucks and you start having fun with that toy, he's going to come over and try to take it from you. That's the world we live in. Super sad. And you have these pseudo-intellectuals like some of my family members that just research nothing, know everything, and they're just wolf in sheep's clothing of sort of a bam moron going around destroying the world. And as long as some other bam pseudo-intellectual writes an article in New York Magazine, these idiots just completely suck it into their system. But they never, ever have the capability of standing above the universe and saying, oh, wow, this is a bad sociological experiment that I'm personally contributing to. They don't want to be wrong. And there's this crazy disease in the world where people want to be smart. Like the guy that posts all day long but never offers a single intellectual, scientific theory. He just posts things that he thinks makes him look smart. But to smart people, he looks like he's removed all doubt that he will never be in his lifetime intelligent. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. I hope these people wake up before they die and they can enjoy the huge epiphany and wonder of this world, and actually explore something. And if you're super polarized, where you're like, if you like flat Earth, I'm gonna unsubscribe. If you like heliocentric Earth, you're gonna unsubscribe. It's like, dude, why did you ever subscribe? I don't think that this is your place. Go on Twitter and call everybody an idiot, because that's your world. That's your world. You are going to be playing this game for a really long time until you can stop doing that. Until you can say, hey, these are my beliefs. None of you have been in space. None of you have been in space. How the hell do you know what this place is? I haven't been in space. Don't try to corner me with some sort of polarizing opinion that's going to make you angry. Go take a poop. Just strange. Anyway, hope you dug this. I know some of you love these episodes just like I do. Got some other good stuff coming. What I'm going to start doing, by the way, is I've been going back to season 1 and kind of watching some of the old episodes, and they're great subjects, but because of the production value and sort of things I've learned in 5 years, I'm going to be reprising some of those old episodes and bringing them up to date and just going from scratch. So I will be redoing my cancer treatment episode. There's no such thing as a cure in this world, because you can always catch something again. But I'll be doing that one. I'm going to be doing probably the CERN Hadron Collider one again. Get my notes all updated for where that thing is today, because every year that goes by, it's more and more intense. So we should have a good time. On that note, please go to deepthoughtsradio.com. Just bookmark it. Everything's in there. I'll give you a short bumper today. For those who contribute on Patreon or PayPal, thank you so much. And in the meantime, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts.